Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we're going to talk about a couple of really interesting plants. The first is one everybody loves to hate. It is Nandina, also called heavenly bamboo. If you have this in your yard, you have probably spent a goodly amount of time trying to keep it under control or even trying to eradicate it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about its medicinal use, which will probably surprise you. But then we're going to get into one of my favorite medicinal herbs and also edible plants. And it's Prickly Pear Cactus, Oputntia. It is delicious and really quite useful. It's actually one of those herbs that could save your life. So if you don't have any of that one growing, maybe you don't want to grow Nandina because it can be pretty weedy and take over. But some Prickly Pear Cactus, whether it's the large or the small, there are several varieties. A fellow even got in touch with me about a week ago to let me know that he had some growing at zone, I can't remember if he said 5A or 5B in the Midwest, and it was hardy, and it had really good fruit, and that's really cool. I hope he propagates it and saves some seeds and gets that one going, because normally prickly pear likes a much warmer environment. In fact, well, it doesn't. Well, the varieties that I'm aware of don't grow where I live in the mountains of North Carolina. Maybe I can get some from him. I'll give him a try. But also, it's just too wet. I mean, we get so much rain. I think it would probably be too wet for any variety of cactus. But just down the mountain a piece, maybe 1,000, 2,000 feet, it grows just fine, and was a major food source for Native Americans and early settlers. So we'll get into that. But to start with, we'll go with the Nandina. It's often called heavenly bamboo, and I think it's actually a very pretty plant. It's not a true bamboo. It's a little bush that has bright red berries, attractive foliage. It's one that is super pretty in winter. I mean, it's when everything else out there is, barren and bleak looking. You see the Nandina with its green leaves and bright red berries, along with holly. Those are about the only two green with red things you see out there. It just looks really Christmassy. And so I like it, honestly. I think it's worth growing it. I actually do have some. Try to keep it under control. It does have, now all parts of the plant contain some toxicity. The berries are especially poisonous, so it's one you wouldn't want to have around kids. Birds eat them just fine, but people can't. The root, well, really, all right, the entire plant is strongly medicinal, okay? But I am giving you the warning about toxicity. You're going to want to do your own research on this. According to Plants for Future, the roots and stems are antitussive. That means it helps stop a cough. Same root word as Robitussin. Mostly with spasmodic cough is what we're talking, not really an irritated cough. But it's also astringent and febrifuge, which means it can help with fevers. Stomatic, help settle an upset stomach or stimulate digestion, and is a digestive tonic. A decoction is used in the treatment of fevers and influenza, and acute bronchitis, whooping cough, indigestion, acute gastroenteritis, tooth abscesses, pain in the bone and muscles, and traumatic injuries. It is especially useful in children's cough. There is a danger that an overdose could cause respiratory paralysis. So that's one you want to be really careful with. A decoction of the leaves is tonic to the stomach, and the fruit is actually both febrifuge and tonic. Then there is some, how would I put, controversy over whether all of them are toxic or not. Some sources say that the Nandina, the heavenly bamboo, is not toxic or mildly toxic at best. Some says it's very poisonous. It may have to do with the variety. I have not been able to find an answer on this one, so you're going to want to do your own homework. You're going to want to make sure a proper plant ID, and then if you use it with caution and care. And just like poke, Phytolacca americana, just like many plants that have toxicity, lily of the valley would be an excellent example. We can learn to use those plants safely, but we don't just go in there with, reckless and taking large doses of a poisonous plant. That's stupid. And you want to make sure if you have kids, not to let them go over and start snacking on those berries, obviously. The root is anti-rheumatic. It actually is good for arthritis. And I guess that's about it, really. It's a very useful plant, but you're really going to want to do your research on it. And as I said, I find it pretty, but most people just curse it because it does take over, especially just depending on where you live. Now we'll get to the Oputntia or Prickly Pear Cactus. As I have said, this is one of my all-time favorites. Mainly because, I love to eat, and I love to eat food from the wild. And Prickly Pear Cactus is great. I've actually had some people say, wait a minute, that's an invasive plant. I don't really know why they say that. Now, maybe in some areas of the country it is. But the prickly pear has been cultivated here in the Carolinas since long before the settlers got here. So maybe Native Americans brought it in. I do know the smaller one called Indian fig is native. The larger ones may have been brought in from the Southwest and cultivated. I don't know. But if you're driving around, especially especially in the eastern part of the state, if you see a big stand of prickly pear cactus, you can pretty much be assured that there was once a homestead there. Just like if you're in the mountains and you see an old apple tree, there was once a cabin there. Somebody grew that plant for food. And in both cases, they last for generations. I have no problem with planting prickly pear cactus. I don't really care what any so-called expert says. I mean, they always, when you're talking invasive plants, the question to ask is native to when? Every plant came here from somewhere else. It's just a matter of when it got here. Now, if we were going to say that invasive plants are those that came over with European settlers or whatever, or later, imported from Japan like kudzu or something, and we're going to cut put the line, cut it off at like the minute Columbus touched soil, do we assume that every plant here before then was a native plant? Well, that's scientifically impossible. They all came from somewhere, whether the seeds were carried by humans or by animals or on the wind. They all came here from somewhere. And I really like prickly pear. The pads are mostly used in Mexican and South American cuisine. They call them nopales, or you may see them called tunas. I think tuna may be a mispronunciation of the Latin Oputntia. That kind of makes sense. I don't know otherwise where they got that name, but nopales are really good. Those are the big pads, especially of the larger prickly pear cactus, but you can use the other one as well. I think there are at least 12 varieties. Of course, they're cacti. They are covered in spines. So what you want to do is what you don't want to do is pick these with your bare hands. You want to put on gloves if you're going to use your hands. I find it much better to use a pair of tongs, like kitchen tongs, or simply to hold a bucket under the plant, cut the pad or fruit off, let it drop into the bucket. When I get home, I take it out with tongs and I burn the spines off with a carpenter's torch, a plumber's torch. You can do the same thing over a gas stove. You can do the same thing over a campfire. That's how it's been done for thousands of years. And I guess I would say the pads have an okra-like texture, somewhat similar in flavor, but really more the texture. And if you like okra, you'd love them, okay? If you go to a good Mexican restaurant, an authentic place, and they have nopales tacos, that is like the one vegetarian dish I will eat in a Mexican restaurant and really be happy. Sure, maybe, quesadillas with some peppers, that's good stuff too. That's not really authentic. Nopales tacos have been eaten for thousands of years. And it's just a matter of taking the pads, roasting them up, slicing them, putting them on a taco with maybe a little bit of that cojito cheese and some pickled red onions and a little bit of hot sauce, and man, that is good. That is really good. You can absolutely have them with fajitas. Really, very good. And you don't have to have them, Mexican or South American style. You can cook them as just a vegetable on your stovetop. Eat them as a side dish. Just a little salt and pepper, you're good to go. They're very good cooked with bacon grease or olive oil. You can put them in soups. Absolutely, you can put soups, make soups with them. Anything that you would use a mild green vegetable. And if you like the texture of okra, and it isn't as slimy as okra, but it's actually more meaty. Very good. But the real treat with the prickly pear cactus is the fruit. The fruit will turn dark purple when it's ripe. When you slice into it, it's got the same color as like dragon fruit. I mean, it's just dark red purple. And it's kind of like a kiwi. A seedy kiwi, if you want to think about it that way. Really delicious. What you want to do with that, again, burn the spines off. Peel them with a vegetable peeler. If they're nice and ripe, you can actually just press them through a wire screen, like a sieve, to take out the seeds. Otherwise, pick the seeds out. And then they can range from mildly sweet without a lot of flavor to really nice and bright and sweet and really worth eating as a fruit. Excellent with a little splash of lemon juice and some salt. I like that a lot. Really, really good for making a granita, where you would mash them up, basically, push them through a sieve, and freeze it. Make almost like a sherbet type of, an ice cream type thing out of it. You kind of freeze it, take it out, scrape the ice up with a fork, put it back in, do that a couple of times. I suppose you could do it in an ice cream mixer as well, but it's not going to have that granita texture. Really good in margaritas, by the way, when done that way. And probably one of the best uses for it is to make wine out of the juice of the fruit. It is so packed with antioxidants. That bright color, it's like pomegranates. It's like dragon fruit. I mean, it is so very nutritious and very good for you. And our early ancestors relied on it heavily for vitamin C to prevent scurvy. So, whether you want to say it's invasive or not, I think it's a pretty plant. It has beautiful yellow flowers in the spring and early summer. And it's an edible plant. It's a medicinal plant. It's incredibly useful. There have been one of the main uses, and we'll get into some of the more medicinal uses here in a minute, but one of the main uses of the cactus is the pads used as a poultice. You just basically split them in half and put the open side, the wet side, down on whatever is inflamed, or if you could be used as a drawing poultice. It's great for insect bites and stings, snake bites even. I have spoken with and read several stories of herbalists who were bitten by copperheads or rattlesnakes who used prickly pear as a drawing poultice and didn't have tissue damage, survived, obviously, didn't have to go to the hospital, had a rough time because that's a pretty serious venom. But they put that on there. I don't know exactly how it works. They say it draws the venom out. I'm not sure how that works. But it's been used that way for, again, hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they say you put the open side of that pad down on the bite, and in like 15 minutes, take a look at it, and it'll be completely black. Put another one on there. This time it should last 15 to 20 minutes. You keep doing that until it stops coming up black. And as that happens, the swelling's going down, the inflammation's going down, it's soothing the pain, it's astringing the tissue, and supposedly it's doing something to neutralize that venom. All I know is people swear by it. I don't understand it. I hope I never have to use it, but it's there if I do. In case of like a bee sting or something, you could do a spit poultice of plantain. It seems to do the same thing. It's definitely astringent, it's definitely soothing, it's definitely healing. Whether it's pulling the venom out or not, I don't know. But that's another way you can use the prickly pear cactus is on stings. Any kind of swelling, really good for sunburn. The pulp is sort of like aloe. Very good for sunburn, very good for any kind of burns. You can use it interchangeably with aloe in that regard. Yeah, it's just really a first aid plant to have around, and that's why I said it could save your life, because if you were out in a remote area and you got bitten by a poisonous snake, you're in bad trouble, and it's at least worth a try at that point, if that's the best thing you can do. If you can't get to a hospital, it's at least worth a try. So let's see what Resources of Southern Fields and Forests tells us about prickly pear. It said that the fruit is edible, and the leaves cut transversely are applied to tumors as a discutant. That means it would help reduce, well, he actually said tumors. So, again, I don't know quite how that works, but it's worth a shot. Decoction is mucilaginous and is much used in Alabama as a demulcent drink in pneumonic and pleurotic inflammations. Okay, so demulcent means softening, essentially. And this is actually talking about inflammation of the lungs, so it was taken as a drink for that. It's also very good, of course, for both diarrhea and constipation. It can be a laxative in certain doses, but it's also somewhat astringent, and it can help with diarrhea. Botany in a Day says medicinally the pads are very similar to aloe vera, and like aloe, the Oputntia poultice osmotically draws out waste material. Okay, that makes sense. From bruised, burned, or injured tissue, while soothing the tissue with its mucilaginous properties. So it's saying it's a matter of osmosis. So, you know, when I said you put the cut side of the pad down on the snake bite and you look and it's black, it's apparently pulling, as they said, waste matter or contamination out of the tissue, which is actually, that makes sense, and it's actually very interesting. A similar mucopolysaccharide forms a hydrogel between your body's cells. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So the juice, the pulp of the cactus is similar to the hydrogel between your body's cells, which is why it's able to cross what would otherwise be a fairly impervious barrier. That makes a lot of sense. I have to highly recommend Thomas J. Elpel's Botany in a Day. Always an excellent resource, not just on identifying plants, but learning how to use them. He says this gel can dry out and break down after an injury, especially after sunburn. Yeah, that's why it helps with sunburn. It's sort of replacing that hydrogel. Your body will absorb the mucilage out of a cactus pad to strengthen your own mucopolysaccharide gel. Wipe a cactus pad over the burn and you will feel how quickly the mucilage is absorbed into the skin. Keep rubbing in fresh mucilage and you can recover from many otherwise serious burns. So yeah, definitely a good one to have on hand. He also says that prickly pear has a hypoglycemic effect for adult onset diabetes, so it can actually lower blood sugar. The effective dose averaged from 4 ounces of juice per day. Refer to Michael Moore's Medicinal Plants of the Desert and Canyon West for more information. I studied with Michael Moore, so his stuff was pretty great. And I think most of it's available for free online now if you want to check that out. And that's not Michael Moore, the fat communist film director. That's Michael Moore, the unfortunately deceased, may rest in peace, fat communist herbalist. And he was, and I think he would readily admit to that and laugh at my description. Plants for a Future said that medicinal use of eastern prickly pear. A poultice of the peeled pads is applied to wounds, sores, etc. The juice of the fruits is used as a treatment for warts. A tea made from the pads is used in the treatment of lung ailments. Yeah, so yeah, that's exactly what Resources of Southern Fields and Forests was saying over 100 years earlier. And yeah, medicinal use of prickly pear, the flowers and stems are antispasmodic. I have never used the flowers. They're just so pretty. I'll have to give them a try. They don't really have a stem though, so I'd kind of take that with a grain of salt. If it is, it's sort of like a real short base stem, so you'd basically be using the flower. They're diuretic and emollient. Split stems have been bound around limbs as a first aid measure. Stems, huh? I wonder if they mean sort of the joints between the pads. That could be it. Yeah, maybe. The flowers are astringent and are used to reduce bleeding and treat problems of the gastrointestinal tract, especially diarrhea, colitis, and irritable bowel syndrome. So that's very interesting. I know they're astringent. I know the plant. I haven't, like I said, I haven't really used the flowers. Colitis and irritable bowel can be really difficult to treat. Basically, if you go to a doctor, they're going to want to put you on basically chemotherapy for it. But there are several herbs that can help. I've used with people who've needed help with this, family members essentially. Canada fleabane, origeron, works very well. It's a nice astringent plant. Cold sage tea, cold yarrow tea can help. Goldenrod flowers can help. Let me think if there's anything. Mullein can help. Plantain. But yeah, the flowers of prickly pear cactus would be, probably quite effective. We'll have to give that a shot sometime. The flowers are also used in the treatment of enlarged prostate gland. So another really good use. Another reason you should have this plant growing at least in a flower pot. You could get the little Indian figs growing in a flower pot. Just be sure to get a cactus potting soil mixture. Give it as much sun as possible and don't overwater it. And you should be good to go, really. Peterson Field Guide to Eastern Central Medicinal Plants tells us American Indians poulticed the peeled pads on wounds, applied the juice of its fruits for warts, drank pad tea for lung ailments. In folk medicine, it was used for rheumatism, and the juice used for gravel, kidney stones, or other urinary gravel. Baked pads were used for gout, chronic ulcers, and wounds. So, I think it's a very useful plant. It certainly would make my top 10 if I was planning, not just an herb garden, but one that would double as a wild foods garden. Because, as I said, those things are really good. You take those pads, get the spines off of them, roast them up. You can put them on the broiler. It's even better to put them on a grill and just really grill them through on each side. Slice them up. Take a little bit of marinated skirt steak or chicken, whatever you like, shrimp, whatever you like, and some peppers and onions and tomatoes, and roast them up real well on the grill and chop them up, a little garlic, get everything nice and charred. That's what I'm trying to say. You want to char your tomato. You want to char your tomatillos if you use them. Make sure your onion's charred. Make sure your garlic's charred. Make sure your peppers are charred. And you can take those peppers and tomatoes once they're charred and just stick them in a bag, and then the skins will slip right off if you care about that. I usually don't bother. And just take that, slice it up, slice those cactus pads, put them on a flour tortilla with some good salsa and some habanero hot sauce. That's what I prefer. El Yucateco brand is my favorite if I don't make my own hot sauce. Good and hot, nice cold beer, some sour cream, and guacamole, and you're good to go. I mean, that's Tex-Mex with an authentic twist that would please even the most discerning palate. I mean, everybody's going to be happy with that. And you think about it, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've driven down the road and there's just like this massive stand of prickly pear cactus just, in a parking lot or in a public right-of-way. And nobody's using it for food, which is crazy. I mean, we have so many Mexican and South American immigrants, I'm surprised they're not out getting it. But they'll go to the tienda and buy it from the store. I guess, maybe they've forgotten, too, how to wild harvest. And I may have been known once or twice to pull up in my pickup truck, which is a white Ford that could easily pass for a state or county vehicle, and put on an orange vest and go out and harvest a whole bunch of prickly pear cactus into 5-gallon buckets, letting everyone assume that I am there on official business. And no one ever questions me. No, if you put on that orange vest, they just think, oh, state employee, you know. And it's not illegal. It's not like impersonating a police officer or something. You just say, hey, I'm beside the road. I don't want to get hit by a car. So I put on an orange vest. Or they think you're part of a road crew or something. No one ever bats an eye at that. And it's amazing what people do take for granted, because there's so many instances where just putting on a certain hat or a certain jacket can get people into some actually really sensitive areas where they could do some damage. So it's not a good thing, that complacency, but it sure works for me when I see something that is going to go to waste and needs to be harvested and is in a good clean spot. And prickly pear really does go into that category because it grows nice and tall. You don't have to worry about it being in many locations. Obviously I wouldn't want it in contaminated soil. You want to steer clear of that because it's going to take up anything from the soil. But in many areas, you just got these big stands that are within easy walking access from the side of the road, and they're on public property, and there is no reason, in my opinion, why they should go to waste, because I've seen many of them just sit there until the fruits rot and fall off, and then maybe the animals eat them. The birds will eat the seeds at least, so I guess they don't go totally to waste. But man, that's like walking by free food. Free food and medicine, and that's not me. My entire life kind of revolves around seeing such things and harvesting them and making use of them. And let's see, do we have time for one more? Oh, why not? It's a short entry. Eastern Ninebark. This is an interesting one. It's a Physocarpus, and it's easily confused with wild hydrangea. So I want to make sure you know that if you use Ninebark, you need to be very sure of your plant identification. Do not just rely on a phone app for this one. You want to use a field guide, use a phone app if it helps, but use a field guide and be absolutely sure of your identification, because the hydrangea has different properties that could be somewhat dangerous if it was mistaken. Ninebark was popular, I think especially among the Cherokee, as a medicinal herb, and was used to some extent in colonial and early American herbal medicine, but it's really always been considered more of a Native American remedy. It's called Ninebark because the bark's in layers, by the way. It's part of the way you can identify it. Plants for a Future says, a tea made from the inner bark is laxative and emetic, so makes you go and makes you throw up if you have too much. It is used internally to treat women's complaints. That's especially how it's been used. It's been used for a lot of menstrual type issues. Also used for gonorrhea, tuberculosis, and to enhance fertility. It is also used as a wash on scrofulous neck glands, that's infected, inflamed glands in the neck. Some caution is advised, as this herb is best used only under the supervision of a qualified practitioner. It does have some toxicity. So put this in with Nandina. It's one that you might want to look into. If you have some growing on your property, maybe learn how to use it, but it's not what I would call a beginner's herb. Peterson Field Guide says, American Indians use the inner bark tea for female maladies, gonorrhea, tuberculosis, to enhance fertility as an emetic and a laxative, warning potentially toxic. So there you have it. And Ninebark and Nandina kind of belong together on the same show. They are useful, but they're not commonly used in herbal medicine. And you're going to have to do your research on that and be very sure of your ID. All right, y'all, have a great week. Enjoy this hot, lingering summer weather. It'll be over soon enough, and we'll be missing the heat. Don't take anything for granted. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.